Good afternoon, and thank you for being here on a lovely sunny day in Jaipur. I've got two guests here with me who have been introduced to you already. And from the perspective of a business school professor, I can see a connect between what they are both doing and have done. Rohit tells you how to make wealth, how to create wealth, how to use it, and how to protect it. How to set up guardrails around it so that you don't lose it. And Vinita has created wealth, and she's in the second part of her career on how to use it. We have very good stories that they both shared with me. Rohit will talk a little bit about Bollywood, about cricket, and Vinita has a lot of experience and stories from Silicon Valley. So let's make a start. And tell me, Rohit, I was enamored with what you talked about in the film industry, and you talked about Shah Rukh Khan. Tell us a little bit about how he has created wealth and how he's protecting it now going ahead.
Yeah, no, great question and great space to talk about and learn from Professor Sud. And there were very interesting case studies in the Bollywood. The popular narrative in the Bollywood is that, you need to be from the families, to do well in Bollywood. And then there was one time a big, a debate on nepotism and all that. But actually the case studies which have become successful in Bollywood are actually from Bollywood families. And Shah Rukh Khan actually comes on top of that, because everybody knows him currently. When he came in here, he was completely a startup actor in a big city, Mumbai. He came with a lot of big dreams and knew nobody in Bollywood. But he built his career from scratch, because possibly he had a knack for understanding what his target audience required. And what the target audience required was, entertaining stories, right? And Indian audiences are emotional audiences. And those stories, if they can be romantic stories, nothing better than that. So he became a romantic star and, he catered to his audience. He understood that. And then after that, he continued to evolve. He didn't just, stop his journey at being the superstar. He evolved into a businessman. From a superstar doing only acting, he set up a very successful production house. And he didn't stop there itself, to his own industry. He went outside his industry and he became the owner of a sports company, which is an IPL company. Because, what he understood was entertaining audiences, right? So, and cricket is something, and Bollywood are two things, which entertains most of the Indians. So he understood that DNA. And I think that's what he kept on, scaling, his life. And that's what, the case study of Shah Rukh Khan is all about. Another interesting case study is that of Amitabh Bachchan. We know him, the version of that currently, but, he's been in this journey for the last 50 odd years. And, when he started his career with a series of flops. And he was up against a superstar which had given 15 non-stop super hits over a period of 3 years, and that's Rajesh Khanna. Amitabh Bachchan is almost thought to pack up his bags and leave the Bollywood. And he was a failed actor. And then in 1973, Zanjeer happens, which completely, was a disruptive moment for the existing superstar Rajesh Khanna. A lot of our Rajesh Khanna fans, including me. But then that's where the journey of Amitabh Bachchan as a case study starts, from completely a non-starter to giving eventually, hitting his, final moment. And then his life has been a roller coaster. He went into politics because of personal relationship, figured out he's not cut out for this. He left it, came back to the industry. And then there was a moment where he had become almost bankrupt. He went into production. I used to work for a company which had financed his car, and he had no money to pay the EMIs of the car. We confiscated the car. It used to be standing outside our office in Bombay. From that level, the man had the humility and a character. For the first time, for a superstar in Bollywood to go to the small screen, he got his break in Kaun Banega Crorepati, which resurrected his career once again. And he had no qualms about, seeking help from friends, including financial help. And these are two brilliant case studies, which tells you that at the end of the day, if you're delivering value to your stakeholders, you're grounded, you're humble, the world follows you. The work comes to you. And you have to continue to evolve. Like, he was a superstar, but, today with his age, he continued to pick up, age-appropriate roles. He had no insecurity that I was a superstar, the angry young man hero, and I can't do small screen, I can't do small, character roles. And that's how has continued to make Amitabh Bachchan relevant, even today at the age of 83.
Thank you. Vinita, we've been talking about how wealth impacts people. You are in Silicon Valley, you have taken a company to IPO entirely on your own. And the conversations I have with my students who do well is that finance and money is not what draws them. So when they say these huge numbers in terms of valuations, with zeros they can't even count, how does that change their approach towards money? What have you seen in Silicon Valley?
So just for the audience, I would say I'm a product of Silicon Valley. I've spent 50 years there, out of which 20 years I was building a company. I went from India as an immigrant with negative bank balance. So how does a person with negative bank balance think of wealth? She does not. So when I made wealth in the IPO, it was like a windfall. You know, it screws up your head. You don't know how to even think about it. There are stories, legendary stories in Silicon Valley. One specific one is of a person from Eagle Computers. His name was Dennis Barnhart, and a day before his IPO, he goes behind our home in the hills, test driving a red Ferrari in the hopes as soon as his company is public, he's going to buy a Ferrari, you know, I mean, that's not an unreasonable thing. But the bad news came that his car skidded and slipped and fell off, and he died. So they cannot contain their brains when those kind of things, when windfall profits come in. They never expected to be rich. They may be aiming to be rich, but they didn't expect they'll get rich. So I know also a guy, his name was Phil White of Informix president. We personally knew him. And he cooked up the books to retain the wealth, I would say. How? He had made a lot of money when the company went public, and then they could not keep up with the revenues. So he cooked up the books, financial irregularities, those are called, in Silicon Valley, and he went to jail. I mean, that is a quick way to kill what you have made, both your reputation as well as all your savings or money that you made. And there were divorces of people who couldn't contain themselves. Their egos became bigger than their heads. And, you know, their wives could not take them. I say wives because there weren't very many women. I didn't know of any other woman at the time who took her company public. So, you know, the money is good and bad, but you have to just get over yourself when there is a windfall profit, is how I would say.
Thank you. Rohit, you have talked in your book about the power of compounding. Now, that is something that seems to be, in financial circles, a very powerful phenomena. Talk a little bit about how you look at it and why you should be thinking in terms of the short run or the long run.
Yeah. No, thanks. You know, that's I think the core principle, the foundation of wealth creation. And also, you know, getting rich, and not only getting rich, but staying rich. So, you know, I've talked about compounding in two sections of my book. The first one is, you know, as it helps you to create wealth. And that's compounding, not financially, it's compounding in life. Because, for example, see, when you're building a business, and if you're done your business or your brand as doing the right thing for your customers over a very long period of time, it becomes a very reliable brand. It's a no-surprise brand. And if it's a reliable brand, no-surprise brand, it tends to build, you know, more trust with its audience, more and more customers. So existing customers continue to give repeat business, and more customers, they start flocking and choosing that brand as a matter of their first choice. So that business compounds, you know, over a period of time. And I think that catches up as the time goes away. And that's the compounding in life. And we also see that in our relationships. Like even in our personal relationships have been very consistent. You know, we are seen then become as a very reliable, you know, relationship. And, you know, people tend to trust you, confide in you, seek advice with you. That's compounding in general in life. Financially, you know, the compounding basically means that your money creates money. So for example, I'll give you a simple example. At 15%, if somebody's investments are growing, in 5-year times, you double your money at 15% growth rate. In 10 years, it becomes 4x, but in 25 years, it becomes 33x. We all know about Warren Buffett. We know, but at the age of 95 plus, he's amongst the top 10 richest people in the world. But most of us wouldn't know that more than 2/3 of his net worth actually happened after he turned 60. So that's more than 50 years of compounding, right? So he's made his investment and then he stayed with those investments over a very long period of time. And as those businesses have scaled and compounded, so has his investments in him. So I think compounding, that's the reason Einstein called it the 8th wonder of the world. And it is a very simple concept, but very few are able to implement in their lives. So I would suggest that first you implement in your lives, in your personal and professional relationships, compound your brand, that's the brand of you. And then with your financial investments, when you invest, just leave it for a generation. And it will surprise you more than you've imagined.
We talk about something called deliberate practice, where, you practice the same thing every day and you expect over a period you will become an expert at it. But deliberate practice is trying to do the same thing 1% better every day. And the magical number is that if you improve yourself by 1% a day, at the end of the year, you'll be 37 times better than you were when you started. So this is something like the power of compounding and letting it multiply and rest there.
Very true.
So let me make a short comment on that. That, when somebody is managing other people's money, that's a different thing. It's very hard. I'm not undermining it. It is an art and a science in itself. But if, as a person who has the money, if the person is not prepared to take any risk, that is also a kiss to death. So you have to risk something in order to make above average returns where your money is not sitting in the bank. That's all I wanted to say.
So, we talk about a hygiene factor, that as long as you don't have money, it is the biggest objective that you have. But once you have it, what do you do with that? And there are enough studies, Harvard longitudinal study, that over 75 years, money cannot be a motivator to make you happy. Let me ask you a personal question, Vinita. All the assets that you have built, you and your husband Naren, I know an easy way would be to adopt me so I can inherit it. But if you're not doing that, how will you divide that with your children? Do they need those assets? Are you demotivating them from leading a good life with so many assets? How do you think about it?
Okay, so we have 2 daughters. They are now both in 30s. When they were less than 10 years old, both our companies, we had 2 companies under the same roof, had gone public. So we had a lot of affluence, and we worried and talked about it and fought about it. How will we keep our kids grounded? How will they get the pleasure that we have gotten by working hard and creating it? May be wealth, but we were not aiming to create wealth, as I said before. So we worried about it. So it is, once they grow up, you're not, by giving them wealth or not giving them your saved money, you're not going to make a difference. What makes a difference is how you raise them. If you keep them grounded, you teach them work, or they emulate work ethics from you, which is what fortunately our 2 daughters did. I don't worry about what I'm going to do with my wealth. Let them worry about it. I want to take my wealth and use it for gaining my experiences, making myself better human being in some ways, accomplish something. I spend money in bridge competitions.
So Vinita is a nationally ranked bridge player. You play nationally.
Yes,
And before coming here, she spent 3 days. We couldn't get on a call for that weekend because she was busy playing 8-9 hours of bridge every day. And as you describe it, bridge is a 7-minute game.
Right.
And you have to quickly take decisions.
Yeah, it is a dedication. It's a dedication. I'll talk later on about bridge if there is interest. But the point I was making is that once we created money, we didn't want to go and buy things necessarily. We did buy some. But at some point we said, well, enough is enough. What a way to live, to keep thinking of what all you can buy. Instead, spend the money in gaining experiences of your lifetime. And I think that that did good to us as individuals for personal growth, but also set an example for the kids. We forget that they emulate their parents so much more than what we think they are.
They do what you do, what you do. They don't do what you say. Rohit, you talk about the power of networks, and this is something that we teach in organizational behavior, that you have weak ties and you have strong ties. The strong ties are with people you know intimately, but bigger than that is the weak tie, people you don't know that well, but who know people who could be of use to you. You had an example we were talking about with the Tata Group, Chandra. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think Mr. N. Chandra's is a very remarkable, very inspiring case study for me for sure, and I guess it would be and should be for every Indian. And I'll tell you the reasons for that. You know, Tata Group has been there probably for more than 150 odd years. And this is the first time when there is not only a non-Tata, but a non-Parsi has become the chairman of Tata Sons. It's a very significant event in the journey of Tata Group. And you know, in the previous question, I referred to compounding in life. This is a living manifestation of compounding of trust, which An Chandra built up with the Tata ecosystem. This is the first and last job. That's the compounding, which is benefit, which is doing that.
What we read is that he's from a very middle-class family.
Middle class, he grew up in a village. He went to a village school. He comes from a large family of 5 siblings. Very humble background, went to not IITs, but a very, maybe in the next level or even the next level engineering college, joined the Tata groups and then all the way up, right? And this is, how did he get the reins? Because, his predecessor also had the same lineage, for whatever reasons, could not continue on the trust. And then if there was anybody else, it was N. Chandra who was invited to take over the reins. So this is, wherever, doesn't matter where you're coming from. What matters is where you're heading to and how you live your life, right? Doesn't matter where you start your graph from, but what it matters is the direction of your graph. Eventually, every graph which goes up starts from bottom. N. Chandra is a living example of that, and compounding in life, and I think can be very inspiring for every Indian.
One thing that strikes me about him is that the students invited him to campus. He's an IMA grad, and he comes without security. He just roams around like a normal, regular person, despite the position that he has. Vinita, I'm intrigued by the fact that you wrote a book, because like you, I have a background in entrepreneurship and run companies, but to make that transition from being an entrepreneur and dealing with people to writing a book, how did that happen, and were there any challenges on that route?
Unlike Professor Sud, I was not a literary person.
No, I'm not either, don't worry. I'm not at all.
Anyway, I was a product of Hindi medium schools and some convent education, mixture of the two. My parents had to get a tutor to teach me English grammar in 7th grade. So I was not a natural writer. And for me to write a book, first I developed writing muscles, writing just a blog post, which is 800 words, on my website, and send the letters to 30, 40 friends in the hope that they will make me better. And I tried my best. But my expressions were poor. That time there was no AI to correct your full grammar. So I struggled with everything. But slowly I developed the confidence and the skills to write at least 800 words. But writing a book was a major deal. It was my 3rd act of life, because I had been an entrepreneur Then I became a bridge player, and now for last 6 months, my book just came out, so in September. So last 6 months, I finished the book, and I'm promoting the book, and my bridge coach says, when are we practicing? So, I'm juggling this, but that's not the point. The point is, the book was like I could have become a laughing stock. When a non-professional writes something, it doesn't have to ring any strings in anybody's hearts. It may be an unreadable book. I wrote a book with my best efforts, authenticity, and a contemporary style, which is what I could muster. And hopefully it is a readable book, an interesting book, not only for literary people, but non-literary people like myself.
Thank you. Rohit, we've been talking about cricket, and I'm very enamored with the game. And you talk about Sanjay Manjrekar and how he reports about how the Indian team behaved in their dressing room in the 80s and 90s, and how it is different today. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, I think a very interesting topic, not only for you, Professor Sood, for me, I guess everybody in the room. Cricket is something which is a religion here. And I think India's cricket has transformed from 2000 onwards. The culture which used to be there earlier in the team, the atmosphere in the dressing room, which used to be more, by a hierarchical structure. Like, maybe we would have kind of inherited from colonial times, more bureaucratic culture. So seniors actually wanted to be, the juniors to defer to them. So whenever team meetings used to happen, and Sanjay Manjrekar has spoken about it, in his memoir, that whenever team meetings used to happen in the room, in a hotel room of the coach or a manager, seniors actually will sit all over, and they would expect the juniors are all sitting on the floor. So that was the culture as a senior, junior. And I have grown up in times, most of us of my generation, when you went to your colleges, your boarding schools, there was a culture of senior and junior. Yeah. That's where ragging came from, right? And thanks to Ganguly, the Dada, when he came, Dada of India cricket, and he changed completely. He had, a sparkling talent called Virender Sehwag, right, who was completely non-stereotypical, in terms of his approach towards the game. And he was trying to play in a stereotypical manner. And he miserably failed in his initial, innings. And he got dropped when Indian team went for the Pakistani tour. And then Ganguly gave him another chance, and he told him that you play your natural game. Because Sehwag was a guy, he says, if a ball will come, if I want to hit, I will hit. I don't bother. He was a fearless guy. And after that, when the leader had a confidence in him, he went ahead and scored that 303 not out in Multan and got the, the title of the Sultan of Multan. Right? And that's what changed the culture. Ganguly just told us that play fearlessly, play your natural game. And after that, then we have now Indian cricket team which plays to win. Earlier, the Indian cricket team used to play not to lose. Yeah. And there is enough statistical, data which tells us in every sport, not just cricket, teams which win not to lose, invariably they lose the most number of times. Only teams which play to win, they are the ones which win. So I think that whole culture shifted, that at the end of the day, there is no hierarchy. Everybody is a player. Yes, there could be a mutual respect. That's the reason this whole world of bhai comes in. Ganguly bhai or a Dhoni bhai. We never used to hear it earlier like a Kapil bhai or a Kapil Paji used to be there, but no Gavaskar bhai, right? The culture completely shifted, and that's how I think the performance, the best came out, started coming out of these cricketers. And that's what we see in the Indian cricket team now. They are a fearless team. Doesn't matter where they're playing, India or outside. No, they just play fearlessly.
That's an interesting, but the UK example, Britain, England, the baseball that they play recently has not given them results. Now, of course, maybe they've gone overboard with that concept of just attacking all the time, because they lost miserably in Australia right now, 3-1 or 4-1.
Yeah, that's right. And this section I want to touch upon, this which I referred to, is in a chapter called Ego versus Self-Respect. Yeah. And it's a very interesting aspect. When you read the chapter, you'll get the drift of it. And this example of cricket, Sanjay Manjrekar has given as part of that chapter. That, at the end of the day, when you're seeking adulation from outsiders, then, the ego takes over. And then, it could have a detrimental impact on the wealth that you've created.
Talk a little bit about bridge. Are there people interested in bridge here? If you're interested, raise your hand. So I see a few hands up.
Oh, I'm so glad to see a few hands going up.
So talk a little bit about your experience,
Yeah.
about what it means in those 7 minutes when you're playing a hand.
Okay. So the reason I took up bridge was I'm highly competitive by nature. So after my company chapter was over, I was looking for something new. People talk about serial entrepreneurs. I was not cut out for that. For me, it seemed like the same old movie being played again. If you start a company, you have employee problems, you have customer problems, and you have problems of products, how to get the products out. So I said, I've seen that movie before. Let me do something new and different. So I was searching, and I ended up walking into a local bridge club. I didn't even have a partner. Somebody played with me, and slowly and surely, I started building a network and found a coach. So bridge is an intense game. It's a mind game. So far, maybe AI will solve all the bridge problems, but so far computers, the big blue computer of IBM, could play against the best chess players and win, but not the bridge. Bridge is a game. One thing I always say is, play the cards that you are dealt. Don't imagine, I wish I had this. You don't. So that's also true in business. Play the hand that you have. But the second part which is intriguing, is you are making decisions in 7 minutes, because each hand is played within 7 minutes with incomplete information. You have no idea what is happening. I was in a bridge game, as Professor Sud mentioned, a day before I left. For 4 days, I probably played 300 hands in 4 days.
300 hands.
300 hands in 4 days. You don't sleep. You dream about your mistakes that you have made, and you make a lot of mistakes. And in 7 minutes, you at least have 2-3 lessons that you could learn. But there is no way this brain is cut out for that.
Tell us
You
one
learn
lesson.
so much.
Tell us one lesson that you learn when you're playing like this.
Well, make decisions with imperfect information, but more importantly, live with it. You have to live with your mistakes. That's true in business. You predict the markets.
Yeah.
You hire somebody. You can make a change when you hire somebody and the person doesn't work out. But you can't change the market. You have to fit in and live with the consequences. So I think that is lessons of bridge. In my book, I captured 10 metaphors and lessons of bridge, which apply to businesses as well as to life. Focus, intense focus. It's like Arjun-like focus, who looks only at the eye of the bird when he fires his tir kaman. You know, in bridge, you are sitting and you are saying, what is that which is going to give me one extra trick? And the movie goes very, very fast. So it is an exercise of mental agility. It's a sport which requires grit. The first time I competed in high-level tournament, I was shaking with fear, because I wanted somebody to hug me and say, oh, everything would be okay. You know, it is something when you are new in an arena, you are very fearful. But I didn't back off. I just continued to go, and slowly and surely got there and won several US championships.
You know, I'll come to you, Rohit, now. Rohit, something that we have studied and we look at is this ability to be intellectually humble. And companies want that, the ability to recognize what you don't know and learn from your failures. Now, you have talked about the winner's curse. Expand a little bit about that from your book.
Yeah, so this winner's curse is also from this chapter of ego versus self-respect. So it's a very interesting situation.
Ego versus self-respect.
Versus self-respect. So, it's a very interesting situation when auctions happen. So when auctions happen, so what happens? Everybody's bidding for the price. There is a reserve price, and then everybody starts bidding. And somebody who wants to really win that auction has to continue to raise the bid, right? And the winner's curse is that if you are really hung upon that, you want this at any price, then you'll just keep on raising your bid, even if that bid has gone much beyond the intrinsic worth of that asset. But your ego is telling you that you are a big guy, and this is something which only you can buy, and you will buy it come what may at any price, right? And that is where it starts eating. That thought process actually starts eating into your wealth. So the winner's curse is that the winner doesn't see that to win at any cost, you start eating into your wealth, right? Because you're driven more by ego and not by your self-respect, which is self-worth. That's the reason I talk about that, to your own self-worth or self-management is very, very important to keep your net worth. If your self-worth is weak, your net worth will not be sustainable over a long period of time, because you'll keep on bidding and keep on buying assets much higher than the intrinsic worth of that asset. So that's the winner's curse.
We hear from in finance journals, finance research, that something like 70-80% of all M&As are all driven by ego. They don't succeed. And the market punishes you when you go in for an acquisition, especially if it is an unrelated acquisition.
And can I add one important point for the audience, and in my work I see this, and people who are related to finance know this. There's something called, when you're investing, is called the quality of management, which are running those businesses. And they get measured by one very important parameter is called capital allocation decisions which those management take. And if those capital allocation decisions are taken on the basis of ROI, they are quality managements. If they are taken on the basis of, no, I want to be the biggest, I want to be the largest, I want to show to my industry that I can expand, or I want to be the biggest but not the best, right? Then that's a sign of something which is a pretentious management, and then markets actually don't give a high multiple to such managements, because they know that this is a management which eventually can erode the net worth of the company, because they're driven by hubris and not logical, sensible business principles.
So tell me, Vinita, do you see this happening in Silicon Valley too with entrepreneurs?
Well, before I map that in Silicon Valley, I want to map it into bridge.
Okay.
Okay, so for 10 years, I've been playing competitive bridge, and it is intense, as I stated, but I keep thinking, what will make me win more often? And one of the conclusions is not to focus on winning, but on playing well, on learning, and compounding your thinking, developing good instincts. So this is what it takes to win in bridge. It's not very different in Silicon Valley. People are they're not trying to be something. They are trying to create something in Silicon Valley. And that is one of the secret sauce of Silicon Valley, in my opinion, that they want to create something which is new and different. Can you even imagine the excitement if you discover something new? Not that everybody is discovering, but they're discovering in a small way something which is new and different. And anyway, I think I should just stop at that for now.
See, Rohit, I teach entrepreneurship, and you are a classical entrepreneur. I've stopped teaching it now, or I do it in a limited extent because I'm more an academic. But I noticed that you talk about solving a real problem. I find a lot of my students, and this is common not only in India, but I believe in the US too, where Y Combinator reports data, find a solution and then search for a problem that they can fit that solution into. Now, doesn't that go exactly the reverse of what you argue in your book?
Great question. And I would say that would be a similar situation as, the cart ahead of the horse.
Yeah.
See, what is a business at the end of the day? And I kind of describe this, parts of the book in a very simple manner with some real life examples, that every business has got a common thread. There's no difference whether there's somebody who's selling chai on the street to somebody who's running this hotel. That at the end of the day, every business is solving some problem for the customer for which the customer is willing to pay a price, right? So any business which is built around its stakeholders' needs and wants, which is, the customers essentially to begin with, what the customer needs and what the customer wants, and then also the people who are going to serve that customer, because they also need a scalable career, is going to survive and compound and grow and stay for a long period of time. But any business, like for example, which comes with a very romanticized idea, right? Which is not thinking anything at all about the stakeholders, but the idea takes over the target audience. Then it's only luck because of which it can, it can pass. Otherwise, very little chances that it will survive, because you're not catering, you're not catering to adding value to your target audience, which is first your customers. And if the customer is not paying for it, even the people who are working for the business, will not have those jobs for a long period of time. It will not be a growing business. They will not have a scalable career in that business. So that business is not really going to last for a point of time. That's the reason if you see in the new age entrepreneurs, they are really mesmerized with, very many romanticized ideas. I give you an example of Zomato. When Zomato came, they introduced the idea of Yelp, which was a restaurant listing, app in the Western developed markets. It didn't work in India at all, because in India, we do not have a culture, Indians eating out as much. It is improving now, but nowhere close to Western markets, because we have helps at home. And then they continued to pivot the business, and now we know their business is largely driven by quick commerce, which is quick deliveries to your homes. That initial business, so that problem, no customer was wanting to be solved. They didn't want to tell me which restaurants to go in my city or my neighborhood, because they're happy to cook at home and eat it here. But now they're solving a problem for the customer, they figured out, and now they're growing. So at the end of the day, see, you have to solve a problem for which the customer is going to pay you. Otherwise, the customer is not going to pay you for something, which is your dream.
So I started with you, Rohit, so I must end with Vinita to be fair, because I have a small question for you. You have lived 5 decades in Silicon Valley, and when you first went there, Silicon Valley was not the hot property it is today. We hear stories about the tech giants and their founders and their senior people not giving technology to their children. The technology that they invent, that now we take for granted.
Right.
Is this true or no?
Silicon Valley, I'll tell you, takes a lot of risk. The entrepreneurs are taking bigger risks. If you are not developing a business that you can experiment and find out, you go with something that you visualize, which is the technology or the market is coming at you, and you develop a product for that market. Now, the key thing in Silicon Valley is if you produce incremental solutions, they don't work. You have to go back to the first principle. An entrepreneur in big or small way sticks to the first principle. And let me illustrate what the first principle is very quickly. A friend of mine, it's a non-technical example, a friend of mine in Silicon Valley who's a housewife, and her family and my family, we decided to go for a vacation to Turkey. And in Turkey, we 2 women wanted to buy some gold jewelry. And I bought something, and she said, I will bargain for you. So what does she do?
She's American.
She's an Indian.
Okay.
She's an Indian. She didn't even have college education.
Yeah.
And she's married to a successful entrepreneur. But she said, this is the price of gold in the market. How much gold does this thing have? How much is the banwai of this? And thoda sa profit le lijiye in, of course, English. And she offers that person, after giving her reasoning, all the calculation.
And does he accept it?
1/3 the price. This is called
What?
starting with first principles. To map it, and she's not a professional in any way or shape.
She's a professional bargainer for sure.
Yeah, she knew what first principle is. Elon Musk, for example, developed a rocket And how did he bring the cost down? By first principle thinking.
Yeah.
He found out that it cost $65 million to buy a rocket. Then he said, how much is the cost, material cost? The sheet metal cost and other costs were 2 or 3% of that price. Then he figured that it was the supply chain inefficiencies, profits, which were padding the profits of it. And the third factor he applied was reusability of the rocket. And he was able to bring the price of the rocket in SpaceX by 1/10. So you have to think in major chunks in Silicon Valley in order to make an impact. And of course, not everybody thinks like Elon Musk, but I have a lot of respect. He's one of my icons, living icons.
Yeah. So I'll just add a sentence to that. Famously, he does not employ anyone who has worked with NASA before. The argument being that you already have a set way of thinking, and if you want to disturb the status quo, you want to disrupt something, you have to come with a clear mind and question everything. Anyway, we are running out of time. Questions, one here, one at the back there. Please pass the mics around. And please tell us who the question is addressed to, and make the question brief, please.
Yeah. So this is for Rohit. Rohit, if you were to choose one, 8% study return with compounding through EPF, Employment Provident Fund, versus 11% return through stock market, susceptible to black swan events at an individual level.
Any day, 11%, because there is an opportunity cost of, growing your money, compounding your money at 3% per annum year on year, but with one caveat. You are not going to look at or get bothered by the ups and downs of the market before 10 years, right? So you have to stay in the game, because compounding effect starts playing after a bare minimum staying in the game for 10 years. Like Sachin Tendulkar also became Sachin Tendulkar because he played for 24 long years, right?
So Rohit, don't give any more advice.
Yeah.
It's all chargeable, and I'm his agent. So I'll meet you after the program, and I'll give you my Google Pay number. Okay, next question. There was a question there, please.
I'm 62 now, started with nothing, and I have many friends, and in this generation, we have created some wealth. Let's say a couple of $1 million. In Indian rupees, it's a lot of money, and if it's well invested at 12-15%, it'll compound every 5-6 years or so. What's the best way to pass it on to the next generation? Unfortunately, we didn't bother much about, like Vinita ma'am did while bringing up their children, so that they don't blow it away. And now, of course, going forward, the environments become very risky, where people will lose jobs very quickly, and everything is changing. So what's your advice?
Yeah, so first of all, congratulations, sir. You've done well, you've created wealth, and you would have in that process must have created economic opportunity for people around you. So coming straight away to your question, see, the best way to pass on wealth to your generation is to prepare them to start steering the responsibility of the legacy that you have created. It's a family's legacy. So these are the wealth you have created is not life savings which need to be spent. It has to be compounded even by the next generation. So you can truly do it in a succession planning format like any business family would do. They'll bring in the kids first, by first giving with the right values. Now you prepare them for owning this wealth as future owners of this wealth and compounding it for next 25 years. That's the way you build the foundation with your children.
Okay, we'll take a question for Vinita, and I think you have it for Vinita.
I want to address the same question in a different way because I'm speaking for personal experience. I think to shift the focus, at least for me, to shift the focus from creating a company, creating product, thinking about organizations and management, to start thinking about what am I going to do with the money that I have, I find it totally uninteresting exercise. Let the kids figure out what they want to do, and if they blow it up, it's on them.
And in any case, we are not around when they are doing that. So it's their problem, not ours. There was a question here. Please pass the mic. Yes.
Lots of thanks to Rohit. You have a big knowledge, very deep knowledge about film industry and cricket. Vanita ma'am, you spent a very good time in America. And you, I think, because you said that you are from Hindi medium, so you know India much better. So what do you think?
आप
There is
मेरे
a-
लिए भी कुछ अच्छी बात कर लीजिए ना.
Sir, you are from, I'm Ahmedabad, so I'm very, in front of you, I'm nothing. But I'm highly thankful, all three of yours. मैं ये जानना चाहता हूँ कि भारत में एक अजीब सी स्थिति बन गई है कि अंग्रेजी वाले तो पढ़े लिखे, हिंदी वाले बेचारे अनपढ़, और पैसे वाले, गरीब गरीब. और जहाँ तक बात फाइनेंशियल मैनेजमेंट की है, 80% of Indians, they do not know anything about financial management. So 20% those who have a business legacy or an ancestral legacy, only they know the financial management. Unfortunately, we are lacking. So what do you think? How you can improve this?
Would you like to take that first?
Just the last part, 50% of, what did he say? My hearing is bad, I have to admit.
He says most Indians don't have any idea of investment. They
How to?
80%, he's given the number of 80%, are illiterate as far as investment is
Yeah.
concerned. And our investments in the markets are very, very low compared to the developed world.
Yeah, but I also heard you say that either you are rich or you are poor, you are educated, you're not. These are all classification. It's not like in the US, those questions are not being asked because people at lower level feel that their mobility into higher class is less. Maybe that is true, but I would not have been able to, the roots that I came from in India, I would not have even gotten a job which paid me enough, gave me enough challenge and paid me. So as a result, when I went to the US, I knew it is not my connections which will count. It is what I can build and what I can do. And that is what is the invigorating part. I think if we let our kids do what they want to do, rather than shoehorn them into 2-3 different things and try to support them too much, I think US culture is give the freedom to the kids at much younger age. Now, I'm not saying that cultures don't matter. I'm not saying that emphasis on education is bad. But the freedom to do what you want to, be what you want to be, is what I am a proponent of.
And I'll add to that because with young people today, the choices are unlimited. So it is easy to figure out what you don't want to do. And as you eliminate options, then you can figure out what you really want to do.
I just wanted to close this with the point which the gentleman made. तो मैं कोशिश करूँगा हिंदी में बात करने की क्योंकि आपने हिंदी और अंग्रेज़ी की बात करी है. कोशिश करूँगा, मैं 100% नहीं बोल सकता क्योंकि मैं भी उसी एनवायरनमेंट में बड़ा हुआ हूँ, उसी माहौल में बड़ा हुआ हूँ. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि जो हिंदी बोलता है वो नहीं वेल्थ क्रिएट कर सकता है. मैं उसका आपको बिल्कुल उदाहरण देता हूँ. बिल्कुल जहाँ आप बैठे हैं, जिस मंडप में आप बैठे हैं, वो वेदांता ग्रुप ने स्पॉन्सर किया हुआ है. अनिल अग्रवाल जी तो हिंदी बोल के बड़े हुए हैं और उन्होंने इतना बड़ा ग्रुप खड़ा कर दिया जिसके मंडप के नीचे हम सारे बैठे हैं हिंदी बोल के. तो उससे कुछ फ़र्क नहीं पड़ा. धीरूभाई मानी जो थे वो 8वीं कक्षा तक पढ़े थे, पेट्रोल पंप पे काम करते थे. उसके बाद उन्होंने अपना इतना बड़ा एम्पायर बनाया. एक तरफ वो थे और दूसरी तरफ सारे अंग्रेजी बोलने वाले थे. उनके सामने खड़े होकर बनाया. सो आई थिंक होता क्या है कि जो आपको यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ लाइफ सिखाती है ना, वो आपको कोई दुनिया की यूनिवर्सिटी नहीं सिखा सकती. बिकॉज जो आप गलतियां करके उसे सुधार के जो सीखते हो, वो सीख आपके साथ जीवन भर रहती है. राइट? तो उससे भाषा से कोई फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता. आपकी जो इंटेंट है, आपका जो एक अपना अंदर से जज्बा है, वो मैटर करता है. अगर वो है तो आपकी भाषा कोई भी हो, कुछ फ़र्क नहीं पड़ेगा. वेल्थ आपके पास आनी है. आप अपने लिए भी क्रिएट करोगे और अपने आसपास के सब लोगों के लिए भी क्रिएट करोगे.
And you're talking about Reliance and Dhirubhai Ambani, 2 children, very well educated abroad, with MBAs from top institutes, come back and one goes, multiplies 1 million times. One runs the better part of the business that he inherits into the ground. So education and this are really not connected. One last question for Vinita. Yeah, the lady in front, please.
Congratulations on the book. A very interesting metaphor you have used, alchemy. In your experience, do ethics collide with ambition in reaching success? This is for both of you or any one of you.
What is the question?
You make a start.
Can you repeat?
You're talking of the alchemy of success. You use your mic, please.
Because the use of the word alchemy, is there ethics in which clashes with ambition at any point?
Ethics and ambition, what do
Yeah.
you see in the clash?
Okay, my reaction is that if you don't have ethics, you don't have trust. And Rohit talked about trust. It compounds. So I think it is upon us to build that ethics in our character. It gets given to us by a previous generation, but also we need to cultivate it, and there are degrees of ethics. I can be ethical, but I can also be manipulative at the same time, and I catch myself. So it is something that you have to constantly observe your own feelings and interactions with people, because lack of that hurts you more than it hurts the other person.
Okay, Rohit, you have 30 seconds.
30 seconds, I'll try to do less than that. I think an ideal question to close this session, yes, the answer is a big yes, to ethics. And I talk about first section of my book. It is input versus output, hunger versus greed, numbers versus purpose, ego versus self-respect. These are all ethical choices in life. If you are on the ethical side, you will be a forever wealth creator. If you are on the non-ethical side, you will become one Mr. Madoff, and you will blow it up for yourself and everybody else.
Thank you very much, Vinita. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rohit Sarin, Vinita Gupta, and Mukesh Sud for this enchanting session.